Hey, it's Sam talking about the full moon in Taurus that's happening on Sunday morning about 9 o'clock, quarter to 10 Eastern Standard Time in the United States. Now that's when we have the actual full moon. That's when the sun and moon are going to pass the exact same opposing points. We're going to have the full moon at about 1 degree 20 seconds of sidereal Taurus, with the sun at about 1 degree and 20 seconds of sidereal Scorpio. So the sun has just gone into Scorpio on Sunday. Actually Saturday the sun went into Scorpio, and then the moon will oppose the sun in Taurus on Sunday. So we'll feel a lot of the full moon energy on Saturday because the actual full moon phase, what we call Purnima in Vedic astrology, in Vedic culture, is actually the day before we have the exact opposition. As soon as the sun and moon become opposite, then it starts the first lunar day. So we're going to feel the energy. Purnima is actually mainly on Saturday, but the moon becomes full on Sunday morning. So just a technicality, but an important one. So this is happening again in the Taurus Scorpio axis. Now the moon is exalted in Taurus, so this full moon is going to be in the place where the moon is the most powerful, in the nakshatra of Kritika, in the early degrees of Taurus. Now the moon is only exalted from 0 to 3 degrees of Taurus, which is the first pada of Kritika nakshatra, and after that the moon is in what's called its Mula Trikona, which is from 3 degrees to 20 degrees of Taurus. But so this full moon in Taurus is happening right at the sweet spot of the moon's exaltation. Now the moon is exalted in Kritika nakshatra because it's ruled by the god called Agni, which is the god of fire, sacred fire. And we tend to think fire is kind of sort of like a dangerous thing. Fire, why is the moon exalted in a place where there's fire? Well, because fire is about purity, purification. It's about illuminating good from bad, right, wrong, and it's the element that burns through our accumulated tendencies. So we burn up the seeds of karma, we burn up our samskaras, we burn up our accumulated tendencies according to yoga in the fire of truth. So truth is said to be fiery because it burns up our delusions, and we have a lot of delusions. And those delusions and those attachments and those mental concepts come from the moon. Now again, that might then sound like the moon is bad. It's not. It's because the moon is literally what's called the Jiva Atman, or the soul that goes with us from lifetime to lifetime. The sun is the undifferentiated pure soul, the Paramatman. If you've listened to my videos, I explain this a lot. Sun is the undifferentiated self. Not the self. Once the self takes form, in any form, it's the sun and moon together. So the moon is the Jiva Atman, which is the part of us that goes from lifetime to lifetime. It holds all of our karmic impressions. But as you've also probably heard me say before, karma only penetrates to the level of the mind, to the level of the sankalpa, or the divine will of your being. Now understand this. The reason the moon is exalted in Kritika nakshatra is because the karmas that enter the mind can get burnt up. Those seeds of karma can get burnt up. And they need to get burnt up, the negative samskaras. We need to be able to illuminate the truth, which is, the basic truth is, I'm not just this bundle of emotions. I'm not just this separate creature. That's the deep illusion, what's called avidya, the primordial ignorance we all have, is that. And that comes from the moon. The moon is where all of those accumulated tendencies travel with us from lifetime to lifetime. So the moon is exalted in Kritika because in order for those seeds to create new karma, they need to go underground into the subconscious. Then often those karmas go deep into the subconscious and we keep repeating them. Then they grow into trees and weeds and they keep going. But if we take those seeds of karma and burn them in the light of truth, in the light of consciousness, then we're cooking, you might say. So Agni is the god of fire, sacred fire, which burns our samskaras, burns those accumulated tendencies. if you've ever been to a Vedic ritual, it revolves around fire, and often what we throw in the fire are seeds. Each of the planets are related to different seeds, and we throw those seeds in the fire. This symbology is deep. So the moon is exalted in Kritika Nakshatra at the very early degrees of Taurus. It's not Kritika in Aries, it's Kritika in Taurus, the last pada, the last section. Of course, this is totally zodiac dependent. This is where you see the total conjunction and the total integration of sidereal zodiac with the nakshatras and the rashis, of course. So those early degrees of Taurus, when the moon moves into that place where its Mula Trikona is about to begin, but where it's the most exalted, shows this need for the jiva to become purified into the Paramatman, the fire of truth. So, very powerful. You know, it's been a lot of heavy time lately, and this is also the sort of end of the recent eclipse cycle. So, many people have set in motion a lot of deep karmic, kind of unconscious tantrum unraveling, starting new karmas. A lot of that happens. It's not just tantrums, but I know a lot of people who have, like, just, if they have important planets along that Libra-Aries axis, it's been a very transformative time because we've had some powerful eclipses there the last month. So this full moon in Taurus is the sort of end of the eclipse cycle, because the first part of the eclipse cycle happened with the full moon in Aries a month ago. So this is also, thankfully, you know, not necessarily in a bad way. I had a lot of great things happen during this eclipse, a lot of new, you know, especially in my business and stuff, but it's the end of the kind of intensity and the drama and the stress, at least emotional stress, of the recent eclipse cycle. But of course that eclipse set a lot of things in motion that I've been talking about, especially as it relates to some international crises like in Japan, the Fukushima crisis, and other things I talked about, like with the U.S. government, and like the spying scandal, and with the healthcare government website and things like that. These are incidents that started, and they're not just going to stop, obviously. But in our personal life, we should be able to get a little more, feel a little more control of what's going on, especially since Mercury is now direct as well. Jupiter is retrograde, however, so it's a time where we're reflecting on our principles more, and we're, you know, reflecting on our, you know, those things that inspire us and trying to have them make sense to us. This is just a reflection on the Jupiter in Gemini principle. When Jupiter moved into Gemini in June last year, that was a time for us to really test our teachings and really understand them intellectually. Now we're reflecting upon that. So you'll see some reflection, you know, ponder some recent, you know, sort of openings that you've had around your teachings, and explaining them and seeing how they make more sense to you since June, and now realize that you're starting to reflect upon those things a little more and maybe go deeper into them. But in addition, we also have Jupiter's aspecting Venus. Jupiter is opposite Venus, and Jupiter and Venus are about to start making several aspects to each other, because Venus is about to go retrograde, and it's going to aspect Jupiter 2 or 3 times between now and March. I think mid-February. I haven't looked that close, but I know that they're going to be in and out of aspect for the next several months. But Jupiter-Venus aspect shows a lot of change around relationships and, you know, connecting your desires with maybe more universal themes. And this is also really very much congruent with the emerging Scorpio cycle for 2013, because the sun just went into Scorpio. So we're transitioning from the Libra principle, where we were just a lot about compromising with each other in relationship and stuff like that, and we're going into the Scorpio principle now, which is about deepening our insecurities and stresses and fears and worries. So we'll be doing that for the next, you know, month or so, because the sun just went into Scorpio. So in addition, we also still have Mercury, Rahu, and Saturn in Libra. In particular, on this new moon, Rahu and Mercury are very close together. So again, this is a time of great sort of accelerated potential around your social networks, around your communication style, around growing things that you want to, you know, bring you more in harmony with the world and with culture, because of all these planets in Libra. Saturn is deeply exalted now, and Jupiter is hitting this retrograde aspect back towards Saturn. So again, Saturn is highly exalted and getting an aspect, although Jupiter's retrograde, it's still giving that aspect which really can show a reflection and an introspection upon things that we can commit to really deepen our contribution. Again, because Saturn is exalted in Libra because it's where we commit to something that benefits everyone, that benefits other people, benefits culture. Jupiter's aspect onto Saturn connects that with higher vision, inspiration, purpose, teachings. So again, these are all ripe principles now, and especially since we're talking about the full moon, these are all very ripe in our consciousness, because that's what the moon is. As I said, it's the storehouse of all of our karmas from all of our past lives, but of course that includes this life. And we tend to experience the moon as just the kind of jumble of feelings and emotions that we have. And so this is why it's exalted in Kritika Nakshatra, ruled by the god Agni, the god of sacred fire, to burn those seeds up before they become negative. It doesn't mean we have to burn up our whole life. It doesn't mean that we have to burn up the things that are beneficial to us or that we love or the beautiful things. It's to burn up the negativity and to illuminate the process. It's not going to burn something beyond our capacity to see it. First of all, fire comes and we see the truth. Like the dark corners in your room. You can't clean them until you turn the light on. You turn the light on, then you can see them, then you can decide whether or not to clean it or not. But once you see it, it's hard to say, well, I see it and I'm going to let it stay dirty. I see a bunch of dirt-infested, like a lot of sticky, dirty stuff that's attracting roaches and ants, and I'm just going to leave it there. That's not what happens. When we see it, we generally clean it up. So this is why the moon is exalted in that section of the sky, and so very powerful stuff. So that's the general forecast. If you want to see how this affects your sign, you can join my member site, only 1 penny for 2-week trial, and you'll get this forecast for your sign as well as the forecast for November and the last eclipse forecast and all kinds of stuff, some classes you'll see on the page if you want to check it out. But either way, I hope you have a good weekend and be in touch.